What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and I want to welcome you to Subclass School, the series where I teach you everything you need to know about every subclass in Destiny. So a couple disclaimers to start. These videos take a ton of time and effort to produce, so leaving a like on the video would mean a lot to me. Let's shoot for 10,000 likes on this one. Next, I do all my own testing, but I also use the Destiny Data Compendium to cross-reference my findings, or for certain values like damage resistance. It's an extremely great resource, and I leave a link to it in the description of every single one of my videos. So shout out to the wonderful people who work on that spreadsheet. Also, when doing my testing, I don't use any aspect, fragment, or mod that could interfere with the testing. So you are seeing everything at its base level, so that you know exactly how it works at a baseline. Next, a big thank you to my friends and clanmates who help me test the things that require 2 or more people. It means a lot. And lastly, I am trying to reach 50,000 subscribers before the final shape, so do me a solid and hit subscribe. I know it seems like a lofty goal, but nearly 90% of my viewers are not subscribed. Now, I'm not too bad at math, so if we can bring that closer to even 50%, then I know we can reach 50k in no time. I have a ton of great content planned, so I know you won't regret it. Anyways, that's it, let's get into the video. So in this video, we'll be breaking down all the arc fragments. There are 16 in total, and we'll just go in alphabetical order. So without further ado, let's take a look at the first fragment, which is Spark of Amplitude. It states, rapidly defeating targets while you are amplified creates an orb of power. This is a great fragment as you are usually amplified on arc, and it's very easy to do mass ad clear on arc. The problem is, there is a 10-second cooldown on this fragment. So once you create an orb of power, then you will not be able to make another one for 10 seconds. But it is very easy to activate. You just need to kill a couple enemies when the cooldown is off, and you will make an orb that grants you 2.5% super energy. Up next is Spark of Beacons. This fragment states, while you are amplified, your arc special weapon final blows create a blinding explosion. This literally works on any special weapon. This is a strong fragment because blind is such a powerful verb. However, the radius isn't too large on the explosion, so you will only get good mileage out of this fragment if you're using it in very ad-dense activities. Spark of Brilliance is next, and it states, defeating a blinded target with precision damage creates a blinding explosion. Gives plus 10 to intellect. The compendium estimates the blinding blast to be about 3 meters. So again, while this is a strong fragment thanks to the strength of blind, you need to get a crit kill on an enemy that's already blinded. So this fragment can work in very specific builds if you are kind of built around using this fragment. It requires having a weapon that can secure easy crit kills, so a precision style weapon, and you need to have a build that can blind things pretty frequently. There are not a ton of sources of blind in the game, so you really won't get a lot of mileage out of this one. Spark of Discharge is next, and it states, arc weapon final blows have a chance to create an ionic trace, minus 10 to strength. So this is a great fragment thanks to how strong ionic traces are. They work on a counter, so you need 3 red bar kills to get this to activate. Elites grant 67% towards the counter, so like 1 red bar and 1 elite, and then mini bosses and bosses always make a trace. And Guardians are also 67% of the counter. So if you are planning on running arc weapons with your build, then this will be a great fragment to run. Spark of Feedback is next. Taking melee damage briefly increases your outgoing melee damage, plus 10 to resilience. So this gives a 75% increase to melee damage in PvE and 50% in PvP. It works on regular melees and charge melees, and it also stacks with all other damage buffs. So something like Combination Blow with 1-2 Punch, it all stacks so it can hit incredibly hard. It's great for melee based loadouts like Assassin's Cowl Hunter or Liar's Handshake, or even something like Insurmountable Skullfort on Titan, but it can only be activated on a melee hit from an enemy, and those are sometimes awkward to get to proc depending on the enemy type. So it is more of a passive fragment that will give you a nice boost to your damage when you do take some melee damage from an enemy. Spark of Focus is next. This states, after sprinting for a short time, your class ability regen is increased. So this gives minus 10 to the stat that governs your class ability. So recovery on Warlock, mobility on Hunter, and resilience on Titan. The compendium states, after 1.25 seconds of sprinting, and while maintaining both sprint and movement speed of 5 meters per second or higher, you will get 150% additional base class ability regen rate, or 75% in PvP. And then it says sprinting into a wall will instantly deactivate Spark of Focus, and it deactivates when your class ability is full. So on my Warlock, I cast a Rift with tier 7 recovery, and then proc this, and I got a Rift back in 31 seconds, when it would normally take 59 seconds with tier 7 recovery. I did lose Spark of Focus briefly because I ran into a crack in the ground. The reason that this is that is how it is coded in Destiny so that it wouldn't work by sprinting into walls. Again, you have to maintain sprinting speed. So even when you turn sharply, you will lose Spark of Focus, as you can see when I'm doing it on my Hunter. I tested this on my Titan to see if it would still work if I had tier 10 resilience. So I had 100 resilience on a towering barricade, which is normally a 41 second cooldown, and I'm able to get my barricade back in just 23 seconds. So yes, it works even if you have 100 on your class ability stat. Spark of Frequency states melee hits greatly increase your reload speed for a short duration. So this one is very straightforward. Get any melee hit, regular or charged, and you will get a plus 50 reload speed and a 0.8x reload multiplier for 5 seconds. Again, very simple and straightforward. Spark of Haste is similar to Spark of Focus, just worse. It states you have greatly increased resilience, recovery, and mobility while sprinting, and it deactivates in the same way if you run into a wall or something that slows your momentum down like a sharp turn. So with Haste, you get plus 20 mobility, recovery, and resilience. So it's like, okay, I guess some more recov can be nice if you're running for your life, but this one does not go past tier 10 overall. So at tier 10 Resil on a Titan, my towering barricade will be 41 seconds regardless. But if I ran tier 8, then it would take it from 50 seconds down to 41. Where with Focus, you can go above and beyond that base cooldown. So this one is more just for a passive increase to your top 3 stats, which I don't think is that valuable personally, especially since you have to be sprinting to receive those benefits. If these gave you 100 overall for all 3 stats, I think it still wouldn't be all that great. The recovery would certainly be very nice, as you could run from enemies to regen your health faster with 100 recovery, but with mobility, it's like, wow, okay, I can jump higher now with more mobility, but only when I sprint. Cool. So yeah, not a great fragment in my opinion. Next is Spark of Instinct. While critically wounded, taking damage emits a burst of damaging arc energy that jolts targets. So basically, once you get into red health, you will emit a burst that damages and jolts targets. And there's a 15-second cooldown on this, so that is what really hurts it. Like yeah, the burst of damage is nice if you get caught with a bunch of enemies around you, but it will only save you once every 15 seconds. And in higher end content, you are more likely going to die anyways if you're surrounded by a bunch of adds. The burst it emits doesn't do very much damage at all. I think it would be better if it blinded enemies, because then at least you could get out without being shot at. So in my opinion, this fragment could use a rework or a buff. Lower the cooldown to 10 seconds and make it blind instead of jolt, and we might have something here. Next is Spark of Ions. Very simple. Defeating a jolted target creates an ionic trace. It is quite easy to jolt targets with arc builds, so this is a strong fragment, so to keep it balanced, they have a 10-second cooldown so you can't make a ton of ionic traces for defeating jolted targets. But it's still a decent fragment. Next is Spark of Magnitude. Your lingering arc grenades have extended duration. So I will just show some side-by-sides of a regular lightning, pulse, and storm grenade versus the souped up versions from Spark of Magnitude. Next is Spark of Momentum. Sliding over ammo bricks reloads your equipped weapon and grants a small amount of melee energy. Inertia Override, look what they did to my boy. This used to be part of the perk tree on Middle Tree Striker Titan, and it would allow you to get a damage boost. It was absolutely awesome in PvP. Now it gives melee energy instead and reloads your equipped weapon only. You get 20% melee energy on a special brick pickup and 50% melee energy from a heavy brick. So not really worth running at all in my opinion, in PvE or PvP. Spark of Recharge is next. It states, while critically wounded, your melee and grenade energy regenerates more quickly. This is a wonderful fragment. Remember how Spark of Focus gave us 150% increased regen speed to our class ability? Well, this gives us 400% additional base grenade and melee regen rate. and 200% in PvP. This allows our grenade and melee cooldowns to be reduced substantially. Then when you combine this with the ability energy that you get back from Ionic Traces, you can have some super quick cooldowns on your abilities. It is a passive bonus though. You don't necessarily want to be in red bar health very often, but it is going to happen from time to time, and when it does, this fragment helps a lot. It's really good in PvP too, where if you are in a 1v1, you will often get down to low health in that engagement. I like this fragment. It's kind of high risk, high reward. Next is Spark of Resistance. This states while surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage, gives plus 10 to strength. So this one is pretty strong. It gives 25% damage resistance when within 15 meters of 3 enemies, and it lingers for 2 seconds. So basically, you just get greater damage resistance when you're in the fray. It's great on builds that have you in the heat of the action. And in PvP, it's only 10% damage resistance, but this is more of a PvE fragment in my opinion, and a good one at that. Spark of Shock is next. Your grenade jolts targets, minus 10 to discipline. Another very straightforward fragment. Your grenades now apply jolt. This is damn near a must run for me, as jolt is such a great verb, and with the way you can spam abilities on some arc builds, you can have grenades applying jolt extremely often. And that brings us to the final fragment, Spark of Volts. Finishers make you amplified, plus 10 to recovery. So it's exactly how it sounds. Do a finisher, get amplified. There is no cooldown on it or anything. But not a very good fragment, because getting amplified on arc is extremely easy to do on pretty much any arc build. And that is going to do it for the arc fragments. I really hope you learned something, and if you did, then a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Check out my other subclass school videos for more in-depth info on everything you need to know about every subclass. I guarantee you'll learn something. And if you're still watching, then thanks so much for watching to the end. It means a lot. Take care.